And welcome back to Greifenhorst, my medieval fantasy Let's Play series using modded Minecraft, heavily modded Minecraft. So in the last few episodes, we punched through to the Nether and got situated there, and we did a little work on the yard and trying to lay out what will be at least the front entrance to the courtyard of our castle, which is called the Bailey. But it's becoming rapidly obvious that storage is going to be a concern sooner rather than later. So I think today I want to focus on working towards storage. And what that means is if you're new to the series, I have a plan. I have a very detailed plan of where stuff goes and how things will be built, but that includes storage. But I'm not ready to set up the storage area yet because I got to kind of build the stairs and access to the storage area, then start excavating the storage area, and then we can start building out storage and adding storage. And that's more than I'm going to get done in this episode. But with that said, I think the logical place to start would be back down at the bottom of the central core, down by where we built the Nether portal, and we will basically continue the central shaft up to the next level. Now, in our grand design, as I've discussed, and it reminds me, I really do need to take the plans and put them in a format that they're accessible on the website. So now that I'm saying this here out loud, I'm kind of like committing to that sooner rather than later. But on our grand plan, the very bottom level of this central shaft would be, what I call the metro, which is, platforms for a transportation system that goes off in all directions. And then the level above that would be the concourse, which is where we put the Nether portal. And I got a visitor, apparently. Oh, I had a visitor. I had two visitors. I had a butterfly down here. Okay. Anyhow, this would be where the station part of the metro would be, the concourse, right? Waiting areas, vendors, that type of stuff. The next level up would be the workshop and the storage area, and so this is where we'll work, right? That we're going to continue excavating all this deep slate, which we need the deep slate for building out this central core, but also it will be the primary building material of the castle and structures on the surface. So that's all good stuff. We want it. But with all that said, that's going to take a while. So it goes faster because we have Ars Nouveau, and Ars Nouveau gives me the ability to do some mining only when we're not suffering from latency. So if you've been on this series or even any of my Minecraft series, you know that I am a huge fan of Distant Horizons. Love the Distant Horizons. But Distant Horizons kind of introduces some latency, even when I have it turned down to its minimum level. And I live with the latency because I love Distant Horizons so much. But the latency can be a bit bothersome, like now. Anyway, it's livable though. It hasn't caused any fatal errors yet. That's the important thing. But and I'm back. Yes. So this is my family and I were out on spring break, and So okay. So I my day job. I'm supposed to go to the office, but most of the time I just work from home. But my wife's day job, she works from home all the time. So my wife is almost like trapped in the house. I mean, you should see how excited she gets at the end of the week when we go shopping, because she gets to leave the house, see other human beings. So with that said, that's kind of like the backstory, because when it comes to vacation time, oh boy, that's her hobby. Her hobby is to sit there and dream about vacations. And they don't have to be grand vacations, right? They don't, not going to, world tour or, spend a month in London or something. Most of our vacations are actually road trips within the Pacific Northwest. But in this case, for almost a year, she had been planning this vacation to Oahu. Now, we've been to Hawaii, but we've only been to the Big Island, right? So this was the big one. It was, Oahu. It includes Honolulu. It includes the Arizona Memorial. It includes, Waikiki. It includes all the stuff that you usually associate with Hawaii. And she was excited. I mean, we had been saving. We get miles from our credit card purchases, so we've been saving for like years to get free airline tickets and everything else. And so the time was coming and we were going to go to Hawaii, by golly, except we didn't. What happened was one of the daughter units is in the robotics club at her school, and and there's competitions, and they did well enough the competitions that they went to the World Championships this year in Houston. And unfortunately, the World Championships were during our spring break when we were planning to go to Hawaii. So, and to make things even worse, we knew that was a possibility. So we had to change our plans twice, right? Because she was going to probably go to Houston, and if she did, then it would be a mess to go to Hawaii without her. And so my wife was already pretty upset about canceling Hawaii, but even then we weren't sure she was going to go to Houston, right? We were doing that on the assumption she would go to Houston, but what if she didn't go to Houston? So then we had to make two sets of plans for a more local vacation, and that's where we've been for the past week. I've been in Vancouver, BC, and surrounding area, and we were digging it. Now, first of all, if you haven't been to the Pacific Northwest, it is lovely. Most of the stuff you hear about it is probably true, but the bad stuff is probably, it's there, and the good stuff is probably understated, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. We do have a lot of gloomy weather and moist weather, but that's what makes things so spectacular when the sun comes out. And last week the sun came out a lot. It was it wasn't hot, but it wasn't necessarily cold either. It was beautiful spring weather. Flowers were out everywhere. Vancouver and Seattle area have a lot of cherry trees and magnolia trees, and apple trees for that matter. And they were all in bloom, pink, white. It was really, really fabulous. So that's what we did. We went there. The thing that kind of caught us off guard, though, is we went Tuesday through Friday, came home Saturday, and it's Easter week. Well, it was Easter week, and we're after the fact now. But the thing is in the United States, Easter is a holiday, just not a national holiday for the most part. And what's more, if you know anything about Easter, there's Good Friday, which is the Friday before Easter, and that's not a holiday in the United States, but it is an important religious day. And so in some countries, including Canada apparently, Good Friday is a federal holiday, right? Well, we didn't know that. And so, we woke up Friday thinking, okay, well, today we have plans. We're going to go here. We're going to go here. We're going to go here. Yeah, they're closed. Which is kind of funny because the places we're going to go were like, gardens and stuff. You would think that would be open on a public holiday because, locals like to go to stuff like that on a public holiday. But no. So we had to scramble to change our plans and stuff. But that being said, it was a really great trip. And, it just highlights something that we've been saying a long time. First of all, we love Canada. We just absolutely love Canada. And, there have been times over the past decade or so that we've sometimes discussed, sometimes very seriously, about immigrating to Canada. But no, we're still here in the U.S. But this was a very interesting trip. I mean, now we go to Canada 2 or 3 times a year typically. So, I mean, it's, it wasn't like a new experience for us. It was just a great trip. But what was new is that when I need these are the accent pieces that I need. And for those, of course, I have to have regular deep slate, not cobbled deep slate. But what was different in this one is, of course, there's some weirdness going on between the United States and pretty much every other country in the world right now with tariffs. And it has definitely upset a lot of people on both sides of the border. But where I'm going with this is that typically when we go to British Columbia, and I mean, we've been there every season of the year, maybe even every month of the year, we've been there at one time or another. And when we're in British Columbia, not every car is from the United States, but you get a lot of cars from the United States. I would say in an hour of driving around, and in Vancouver traffic, you do spend hours driving around, we would see dozens of U.S. plates, almost all from Washington, but you can get Oregon and California, you get other people, but you'd see dozens. Sometimes, like on during the summer or something, you might see over 100 in an hour. So Americans are all over the place, typically. But right now, with all the weirdness going on, we got there Tuesday. Didn't see any other Americans on Wednesday. On Thursday, we saw one car with California plates. And on Friday, we saw one car with Washington plates. That's it. That's the whole shebang. That is weird. And that just highlights how weird things have become around here. And there are stories of people, being mistreated on both sides of the border because of this weirdness. We didn't really see that. I mean, there was one point where I thought somebody yelled at us, but it was at an intersection and we were going through it, and the guy was looking at us and he yelled something, but I don't know what he yelled, so maybe it was at us, maybe it wasn't, I don't know. But a lot of tensions out there. So it's I love the trip, but it is good to be home. It's mostly good to be home. I still got to go back to work, so that's the price you pay. This is work too, but I like this. I'm talking about my day job stuff, so. So, what I need to do here is I need to make these lodestone bricks. Oh, I got some. And we use these as kind of like the backdrop to these mage lights. Now, I love using these mage lights in like a little recession like this. So, we put these the lodestone block here, so it shines through the little hole I left, and then we can put a mage light in front of it, and it looks like a like a magical dispenser type of thing. Not here. This is just a temporary light, but yeah, something else I wanted to mention is with the rotation I had, my video schedule is set around a cycle of 6 releases, right? I mean, that's just how it works on the calendar. What's weird is for a long time I've had 5 Let's Plays, so it kind of whacks the schedule a little. So what I wanted to do was basically round out the schedule so that I have 6 releases, I have 6 series, and it just, then it works out naturally. With that said, I opened up a poll, and you guys were pretty responsive, so we got a lot of great feedback there. And now I'm gearing up. In fact, this next video I'll work on after this will be the episode 0 of our new series, which will be Raft, right? So a complete step away from the stuff I've been doing up to this point. Though Raft is definitely a survival open world builder, and when I say open world, I mean radically open world. But there we go. But yeah, it's I'm really looking forward to it. Now, that being said, Raft is pretty harsh. I mean, when I say harsh, I mean when Raft came out, I actually got it up very early on, and I need to do this whole side here. Forgot about this bit. And I need to use light too. Need to do a lot of stuff here. But when I got Raft, at least at that time, there was really no tutorial to speak of. I don't know if that's still the case. And it has a learning curve. I mean, you start dying pretty quick. So, according to Steam, I played it a grand total of 54 minutes or 53 minutes. And at that point, I just got frustrated and threw up my hands, walked away. But I'm willing to revisit it, which is why I put it in the number of options, and that's why when people voted for it, I said, okay, we'll do it. We'll give it a shot. But and the good news is that was a while ago. So now when you go out there's all sorts of material and guides and a wiki and stuff. So I think I was read through those. I didn't read much, right? I just wanted hello, welcome to my house. Okay. I just wanted to, I constantly kept dying of thirst, right, on the first day, and I just wanted to get past that. The other thing is, in that first day, you're going to go past an island, and historically, you just had to be crazy lucky to get to the island, and then, you had to be quick because I didn't have any way of stopping my raft. So, swim the island, grab some stuff, get back to your boat. Well, I found out that there's a much easier way to do all that. For one thing, you could build a paddle that can help, move your boat a little bit. And since you have that capability, you can actually do a better job of trying to get your boat, your raft, beached, right? So it doesn't go anywhere. Plus, there is some guides telling you, how to make a water filter in a cup, which is what you'll need. I mean, it's the water that gets me every time. I'm sure I'm going to starve now. If I can get the water going, then starving will be my next challenge. But, that's how these things work. And it's kind of intimidating, but I'm looking forward to it. Now, it's very much a builder, and I kind of look on it like almost like an episode or Star Trek Voyager, right? Which is, we're just on the move, always on the move, going someplace, and having adventures along the way. So that's how I envision it. I don't think there's anything else to the game. It's just a matter of surviving and building a bigger boat with greater comforts, but also the ability to process more materials and such, right? So we'll see how that goes. There are, of course, some other games out there that I'm looking forward to. I posted one on the community channel, or the posts, I think it's called posts now, page for the channel, which basically, I think it's called Evermore. It's Ever something. I'm pretty sure it's Ever something. Anyhow, it looks very Hightail like, right? So I was asking for feedback, but nobody actually. I got a couple thumbs up, but no actual feedback. So I would be interested to hear, if you get a chance, go look at that post. And it just basically has a link to the trailer. This thing is not available yet as a demo or early access, but it's coming. It's supposed to be this month or next, and I'd like to know what people think about it. I think it looks really good. I think it looks very Hightail-ish, right? Which is basically like a second generation Minecraft clone, and I'm looking forward to that. I mean, I've been looking forward to Hightail for years. I mean, I was bouncing off the walls when Hightail first announced, and then of course I had to cool my jets because it's now, I don't know, it's 5 years, 8 years, it's been a bunch of years, and we still don't have it. And every once in a while they do a release, not a release, a press release, and say, hey, we're still working on it, and this is what we're doing. I'm like, yeah, whatever, right? At this point, it's like vaporware, right? I mean, it is vaporware, but more to the point, I don't know. I've just lost all the enthusiasm for it because I've had to wait so long. And let's be fair, right? I mean, I know why it's taken so long, and I totally agree with why it's taken so long. I understand it, right? If you're not familiar, first of all, if you're not familiar with Hightail is basically, like I said, like a kind of a next generation Minecraft clone, but it's made from the guys who run the Hypixel servers for Minecraft. These guys are pretty sharp cookies in this type of game space, and they understand players pretty well and what players want and stuff. And so they designed a system, a new gaming system that would basically scratch all the itches for the traditional Minecraft crowd. And they announced it, and everything was awesome. Now, to their credit, to their defense, I guess, really is what I should say, the problem isn't them, right? I mean, they had a system that was like, I don't know, 60% ready to go, and that's when they announced, and things were looking great. And then that's when Riot Games came in, and I don't know if they bought them or they just invested a bunch of money. I think they bought them. And Riot, though, they do League of Legends. Riot knows their stuff when it comes to MMO type configurations and servers. And when the Riot guys got involved and they looked over their stuff, they said, you got some great stuff here, but it's not going to scale, right? So you're going to have huge problems when you try to roll out the game and you have, not 1,000 people or 10,000 people, but when you have, 200,000, 300,000, million people, you're going to die long before then. So you really need to re-engineer from the ground up how you're going to, your game engine, right? Your server engine, your client engine. So that's what they've been working on. They essentially had to take Hightail as it was and start over from scratch. I mean, literally start over from scratch, rewrite the whole fundamental engine. And that's what they've been doing all these years. I mean, and I think they're getting advice and technical assistance from some of the best in the biz, but they're a small team. And it's taken a while. And that's the killer thing, right? I mean, it's better than what happened with No Man's Sky. Hello Games said, look at all this awesome goodness, and people were like, shut up and take my money. And then the game came out and it was like 1/10 of what was promised, and even the 10th was pretty problematic. Now Hello Games has been the poster child for how to repair a bad release, right? And I think Cyberpunk 2077 was kind of, took some pages from the lessons learned from the No Man's Sky fiasco, and they've done a similar situation. In fact, there's a few other games that have also come in hot and broken, but eventually redeem themselves with like constant updates, right? Eventually going beyond what was expected. But Hightail is actually going the other route, which is they just want to get it done right the first time, right? Not put something out for the sake of putting something out and then having a bunch of angry people and being under the gun trying to fix it. And I respect that. I mean, I would much rather wait for it to be done right than, have it today and then have it be, a flaming bag of poo. But that being said, 8 years, 5 years, I don't know. I mean, I'll have to look that up. I don't know how long it's been, but it has been forever. So, in the computer game world, 2 years, 3 years, that's a long time. And this just blows past that. So, speaking of coming out with something and coming out with something that might be okay or not okay, but then eventually making it great through years of additional dev work and additions and tweaks, that is what they've done with Elite Dangerous, right? Now, Hello Games, they get a lot of credit for being the guys who started, a massive multiplayer online universe or galaxy. But Elite Dangerous is in the same time frame, right? They've been at it just as long, maybe longer. I don't know. And a little delayed reaction, but they've been at it forever, and I think it was functionally complete long before No Man's Sky was, but they too have been adding to it bit by bit over the years, and it's going through a resurgence right now because these guys are. I am having a really hard time hitting this. I have Ars Nouveau, so using well, I call it Big Beast Paxel, the spell I created for breaking blocks. I don't need to make an iron picker or anything like that. I can, get these hard to get blocks like gold and diamond and redstone with the spell. But the spell, like in this case, is being problematic in that I got to be far enough away from the redstone that I don't see the hitbox. And when I do that, I have a very thin target and this bonehead standing in the way. So it was just a bad situation. Anyway, so Elite Dangerous has also done a great job of adding stuff over the years. And I think the irony is that, for a game that's over 10 years old, it's gone through a renaissance and is now arguably, probably, not even arguably, probably just definitely stronger than it ever was at any point in its life cycle. And that's a statement, right? That's amazing. So, I mean, they just recently got my money, and with it being a 10-year-old game, when they, the story behind that for me was somebody commented on a video I made in this channel that, hey, maybe you should look at Elite Dangerous, and it's like, well, I played the original Elite way back in '85, which explains why I always am depicted with gray hair, but I loved the original Elite, though when I was playing it originally on my Commodore 64, it was all wireframe, and then when my Amiga actually filled in the polygons, but still, that was a long time ago. But by the time Elite Dangerous came out on PC, I was just into other things. I wasn't paying attention to that type of stuff. But somebody suggested I should take a look, and I did, and I was actually intrigued. But I was sitting on the fence. I was like, I could, maybe I could, maybe I couldn't. But then so I'm doing my research, and it's like, but they don't have base building, right? I'm a builder. I got to have the building, so they don't have the base building. In fact, that's why I walked away from No Man's Sky. I mean, I would probably be playing No Man's Sky today if they didn't have building restrictions. And the ones they have, I understand the need for building restrictions, especially in a game like that, but I think the restrictions they have are very restrictive and arbitrary, and it just took the fun out. So I'd still be playing that. And so when I found out that Elite Dangerous had these, didn't even have base building, I was like, okay, there we go. I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm not going to get it. And I made that discovery, and like 2 days later, they released, not announced, I mean, they had already announced this, but they released base building in Elite Dangerous. And at that point, it's like, okay, whatever. So now I'm on the other side of the fence, and when it's available, when it's on a really deep discount, I'll go ahead and buy it. And then again, the Steam gods basically heard my words, and the next day they went on sale, and I got like Elite Dangerous for $10, and it was like, the world is conspiring against me. The world wants me to play that game, so I got it. I've played it a little bit. The thing is the building aspects of it. You're not building individual bases. You're actually building a corporate and economic infrastructure in a system. Will you move, please? Thank you. And so it's not like building like I am here. It's more like, we're going to build a docking station or even a space station. And, you get to choose the design, but that's kind of it. The other thing too is, building a house, building a hut, building a tiny little base to park your stuff and have some storage. That's something you could do pretty cheap and easy. But we're talking about like large compounds and orbiting structures. That's not the type of stuff you sign on to a game and you're doing in 30 minutes. These are people who've been playing the game for months or years, maybe a decade, and they have a crazy amount of resources and expertise, and this is the next logical step for them. So, yeah, I was playing the game, but that aspect of it, which really appeals to me, is you can essentially think of it as end game content, and that's a very long end game. So, yeah, I haven't really played it much. I grabbed a mission once where it's just like, take this thing from here and go drop it off at this other place in the same system. I said, oh, this will be easy peasy. Technically, I guess it is easy, except that they when they say you have 5 hours to complete the mission, it means 5 hours, not 5 in-game hours. 5 hours. So, you're flying your mission, but then you gotta take a break for dinner. Clock's still running, and what's more, there is some physical, space aspects to it. Maybe if you're an old hand at it, you could like fly at this light speed or slightly above light speed, and then come out of it really close to a planet, so it's a quick approach. But not me, boy. I kept overshooting it, so I have to get relatively close, and then I have to slow down to sublight speed, and then it's like, okay, it's going to take you 45 minutes to get there. And it's like, oh, and then the other problem I had was it was really hard to see, right? I think I was on the other side of the planet from where I needed to be, and I was looking at the dark side of the planet. So I was just looking at a black screen of black, and yet the target was telling me where to go. But I was like, I'm pretty sure that's on the exact opposite side of this planet. Oh, and I kicked this thing off during my prime gaming time, which is the 2 hours between 10 p.m. and midnight. So my 5 hour mission was going to take more than 5 hour mission, more than 5 hours, and it's now 11:30 at night. And I was like, oh, I'm not staying up all night to finish this mission. So, and that's the most I've done with it, except for the tutorials so far. So I'm still looking forward to it. I do enjoy that type of stuff, right? And I know I've stated on previous videos that I'm not into computer role playing anymore, right? I one time I was really into it. I am very much into tabletop role playing, except the problem with that is tabletop role playing requires people, living humans, to be able to interact with each other in near real time at the same time to get maximum effect. So, and when you're a kid in high school, having time off with same time your friends having time off is no big deal. That's easy. You all go to school, you get your summers off. There's tons of time to hang out and goof off. When you're an adult, and even more so, an adult with and a parent, and you've got a job, and you have taking the kids to soccer or whatever, oh my gosh. And then it's hard enough for me, but then you multiply it out, because a good RPG would take a party of at least 4. So you take 4 players and a referee, trying to get their adult schedules to line up on a regular basis for longer than 15 minutes at a time. That's a challenge, and that's probably 95% of the reason why I hardly ever play tabletop RPGs anymore. But the computer RPGs, I don't really go with those either, because let's face it, they're way too simplistic. I mean, when you're talking about a tabletop RPG, you're only limited by the imaginations of the people involved. And it's a collaborative storytelling session. That's really what it is, right? You guys, it's an interactive fiction at its best. The referee just kind of sets the background and tries to keep the story on the rails within the setting he's provided, or she's provided. But, it's the players that really dictate the story. They're the ones who are reacting to what the referee puts out there. And sky's the limit. Anything you can imagine is possible, right? And it just, you say. But when you're talking about a computer role-playing game, for example, when you talk to a player, talk to an NPC, usually it's a bunch of canned choices, right? So, the guy says, "Hey, who are you?" And then you get 3 or 4 options to choose from, and they try to give you some variety. There's the funny one, the diplomatic one, the overly aggressive one, and whatever, right? And then you choose your options, and at this point it's a very limited choice tree. It's like those old choose your path books, which you probably don't know. This crowd may be too young, but you're very limited to what you're going to get out of this, and any subtlety that you would want. Because when you're out living your day-to-day life, like you go to pick up a coffee at Starbucks, or you're at the grocery store, or you're getting gas, you're interacting with people, and there's all sorts of ways you interact with people. You use your body language, your facial expressions, your gestures, the tone of your voice, and what you actually say. All these things give you this incredible range of emotion and communication that is obviously lost when you are working on a computer role-playing game. But in a tabletop role-playing game, a lot of it's maintained, right? So it's great. It's more flexible. Anyway. So the computer role-playing games, they're canned, they're limited, and what's more, you get a limited number of options. So, go get the X. Okay, I can go get the X and bring it back. Go kill X. Okay, go kill this guy and not bring him back. Go open this or whatever. They're very, very limited. Very 2D is what I call them. And they leave you unsatisfied, right? They're not. What's more, too, is the whole mechanic, go back. JoJo's a bad guy. Go kill him. Okay, that's your choice. So JoJo's a bad guy, and we have to kill him. It's not like we have an option to turn JoJo into a good guy, or to drive JoJo away, or put JoJo in a situation where we can blackmail him into being at least a decent guy. There's, as an author, as a referee, as a whatever, I can think of a million different plot points around this. But with a computer role-playing game, you're like, go kill JoJo. Okie doke. And there's a second side of that, right? Which is with these limited options, like go kill him and take his stuff. Well, that's not the type of person I am, right? That's not the type of person I want to be. And certainly not the type of person I want my kids to be. So, that storyline, that's kind of lazy, actually. But it's also taking the game and the interactions and the whole experience in a direction I don't want to go, right? I'd much rather be, the hero of the village type of thing, by helping people. By doing good stuff. Then we might have to knock some heads, but yeah. That's so I've really grown disenchanted with computer role-playing games. And the thing is I really got into them hot and heavy as a young adult because, like I said, I had an adult schedule, and it was really hard to find time to play with my friends because we all are working and stuff. in high school we played D&D and Boot Hill and all this stuff for hours. For hours and hours and hours, for weeks and weeks and weeks. It was no big deal, but yeah. And now when I go, I read, these. Oops. Okay, forgot. I have to change my spell when I'm eating. Otherwise, when I'm done eating, I'm going to cast my spell. And if it's Big B's Paxil, like this was, I'm going to go drilling the environment. Anyway, so computer RPGs are just unsatisfying for me. I screwed up. So, it's the last the last tabletop RPG playing I did was 2 or 3 years ago. I spun up a homebrew Traveler campaign. Now, if you're not familiar with tabletop RPGs, Traveler is an old one. It's a classic science fiction space-based one. It more along the lines of a Star Wars than a Star Trek, but I mean, it's a system that you could apply to any type of space-based sci-fi scenario, and there is a classic Traveler campaign scenario situation that that's pretty popular, but I love Traveler. I have always loved Traveler, and my Traveler campaign was heavily homebrew, which means it's made up, right? Not the campaign, but even the game rules, right? So I use Traveler as a starting point, and then I customize a lot of the game system and everything. Now, in this case, what I did, I had basically taken the idea of a spacefaring society that had spread across the stars, right across a section of a galaxy, with but it has heavy fantasy elements. So in other words, it's space, there's spaceships, there's energy weapons, there's guys running up blasters, but they're also carrying swords, and the races, there are definitely some alien races, right? Aliens as in classical aliens. But the primary races are fantasy races, elves, dwarves, goblins, hobgoblins, gnolls, the whole shebang. So, and then on top of all that, I for styling and flavor, I kind of set this world up where it was in a very stylized theme, right? So if you are familiar, you'll probably have to look this up, but Art Deco and Beaux Arts. So the Beaux Arts was like, if you look at those old buildings from the late 19th century and the very early 20th century, you see these buildings that had lots of glass and all these fancy, stone decorations and columns and this. That was essentially the Beaux Arts, right? And then that then led way to straighter lines and clean geometric patterns and streamlining, right? That is Art Deco. That was the style in the 30s, 40s, and into the early 50s. And that's what I had. So, you had this fantasy science fiction. You had elves, dwarves, and all those running around blasters and weapons. Their ships and stuff look like like retro futuristic is what they call it. You know, when it, like, you know, the vision of the future as seen from the 1930s. And the technology was based on magic. So in other words, they had these spaceships. The spaceships flew, and they essentially had the equivalent of a warp engine, but the warp engine worked on magic, not necessarily, you know, antimatter reaction with dilithium crystals. So, and that includes the fact that not only did you have guys running around with, like, you know, swords and guns, you had guys who could cast spells. So this just complicates everything. This is a big old mess, which made it really fun and exciting. And we had a group playing in there. My friend Eric, who passed last year, was one of the groups. So I brought Eric on as a, you know, he was going to be kind of our senior dude, because he's an old role player from way back like me. And then the other people in the party were new to role-playing games, new to tabletop role-playing. So he was the guy. Though there are times, you know, I thought he's supposed to be the senior dude, and he did stuff. I was like, "Come, are you drinking?" Because I mean, he might have been. He was playing from home. So, man, but that added to the fun. It was a lot of fun. And the way that story unfolded is that, first of all, Traveler's a little bit different in how you create characters, right? Because in most role-playing games, they have like classes or abilities, and you basically say, I'm going to be this character class, you know, I'm going to be a wizard or whatever, or I have these abilities. You create your character, and then, okay, everybody, here we go. We're all together. You meet. You're going to work together, blah, blah, blah. Pretty standard stuff. But Traveler's different in that you don't create a character. The role-playing starts immediately because when you create a character, you actually start with just like a scrawny teenager with no skills. And then the character creation process actually takes you through years of your life where you generate life experiences. So you find out what career you wind up in. I mean, you might want to go to college, but maybe you don't get into college. So then what happens to you after that? Like, it's really a fantastic system. I love that system. That's my favorite character generation system because the character, you know, the player definitely has an idea of what they want to be, but the game, just like life, sometimes has other ideas. and that's important to shaping your character, right? Like the guy who wanted to go to college so he could be an officer in the Marines. Well, he didn't get accepted to college. The Marines wouldn't take him as an officer, but then he got drafted to the Marines anyway, so he wound up being a grunt in the Marines. And then he had, you know, went on a number of campaigns, and, you know, that is from a role-playing standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, that's all full of rich, detailed goodness that makes the story interesting, right? So, in this case, the three of them, Eric was playing a kind of a dilettante elf guy. His family was an old family. They had money from way back. He was famous for being famous. He was like their version of a Kardashian, except he wasn't as popular as the Kardashians. He's one of those guys who is like maybe a B-list celebrity, probably a C-list celebrity, but he acts like he's an A-lister, right? And then, and he's an elf, right? But he had a ship. So that was important. And then my other friend Gabe, he had a guy who was I forget what the name of the race was, but it's basically they were humanized chimps, right? So think Planet of the Apes chimps, and he had a job in security, but he had some really rough times, spent some time in jail. You know, and now he was doing, he had been doing some corporate security, and now he was doing freelance work. And then there was a Svarti, which is a race of basically kobolds, right? Historically, kobolds from Norse mythology. So they were tinkers and stuff. And she had worked in a industrial lab at the university doing research, but she tried to get through college, but she didn't finish. So she was more of a lab technician, but she was pretty smart and brilliant, and never quite got her claim to fame. And then there was a controversy where she tried to pass off some work as her own, but it wasn't hers, it was a professor's, and that basically got her busted, or almost got her fired. So that's the setup for the characters. And then, what had happened is Eric's character, the elf, had been given or found this artifact, right? It was about the size of a golf ball, had a slightly textured surface, and around the equator of this golf ball thing, there was a finely engraved number. It was like a serial number, but it's 256 characters, letters and numbers. And he was trying to figure it out. As far as I could tell, it was very, very old. And so he had it sent for testing. At that time, Gabe was one of the corporate security guys who were responsible for carrying this thing, but they were ambushed. The thing was stolen from him, and he was used as a scapegoat. So he lost his job, and that's when he was homeless, and then wound up in jail. And all these years later, Eric's character ran into they got together because they had all come together at some point during this thing when they lost the artifact, trying to figure out where it went. And now it's been like 10 years, and they were all happen to be in the same planet at the same time, so they decided to get together and just talk about old times. But curiously enough, circumstances kind of dragged them into the story popping up again. And it involved organized crime, the military, the intelligence services. Eventually it wound up involving a Cthulhu cult. In my fantasy science fiction thing, it was a really crazy mix, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and there's no way you're getting that out of a computer run RPG. It just, when they were in they were visiting the organized crime boss, who was really using them to do a lot of his dirty work errands, because they're pretty effective, but he wasn't paying them, and they're trying to get him to pay them. And there was a bad situation where they basically wound up setting off the alarms in this guy's thing, and that they should have been just killed. They should have been killed. And if it was a computer role-playing game, they would have been killed. Game over. Reload your save. Try again. But it wasn't, right? So I thought I'd have fun with it. And instead of waking up dead, when they woke up, they found that they had been tied up and thrown into the cage of some rather large predatory hunters in the middle of the night of the local zoo. And while the predators were sleeping, unaware of their presence, they had to work very hard to free themselves and then quietly escape this cage without waking up the predators. But then they're loose in the zoo in the middle of the night in a city that teems with technology, but they have none. They have no phones, they had no money, they had none of the things. And, it was better than being dead, I guess, but they had to work their way out of it. And that's all. I had to come up with that on the fly, right? I just didn't want to kill them off, but I definitely wanted to punish them for doing stupid stuff and make it interesting. So there you go. And that's the beauty of tabletop role-playing game, right? That's that type of freedom can't be overstated. That's some wonderful stuff. So... But why I'm doing this is that when I'm designing a world or a galaxy, like in that case, I paint with very broad strokes, right? So I say, here's a planet, here's a city. The city has a rough shape like this. But it's kind of lacking that... photons away. Hey. Whoa, right over his head. It's kind of lacking that interpersonal cozy space, right? Like here, there's really no grand scheme of things. I'm not designing whole nations or politics or anything like that. I'm building a castle, but it's the other end of the spectrum. I'm designing and building close-in personal spaces, and I love that, right? Because I guess they're both extensions of this idea I've talked about before, which is I like to create things that are places where I would love to be or live or visit. And so there you go. Just, one is kind of like what type of situation would I like to be in or live in, and the other one is the specific locales that I would like to visit. So that's what drives me in all this stuff. And then, of course, sharing it with you guys is another key piece of that, because it's kind of the artistic side of me, right? As an artist, I like creating stuff. But if I'm just creating stuff and I'm the only one who sees it, that leaves you feeling empty, right? It's kind of like it's not good enough. I got to share with others, so that's what I'm doing here, right? Is I'm trying to create stuff. Ooh, I don't know why only one is left, but that's messy. I mean, that's better, but anyway. So I like sharing with you guys. That's what this is all about. Like with the. I've said multiple times, if I had been born like 20 or 30 years earlier, I would have been one of those guys that has the model train set up that takes over his house, and probably lost his wife and his job. But then again, the only way you're going to be able to share with anybody is to bring them over to the house, right? And it's not always practical. But because of the digital age, right, I can build an infinite world far bigger than that, far cheaper than that, and keep my job and my wife at the same time. So, best of all worlds, that's what I got here. And I get to share it with you without having everybody come over to the house. Not saying that you're not welcome to come by the house, but this way you don't track all the dirt on the rug. Anyway, thank you for listening to my ramblings and visiting me on this little journey. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly do, or did. I still do. So next time we will probably, we got that level up. So now we'll probably start building the vaults and planning out the actual layout of the storage. But, baby steps forward. In the meanwhile, I hope this finds you and yours in good health, good spirits, and perhaps a touch of good fortune. Cheers.